War, What Is It Good For by Edwin Starr. We're going to talk a little bit about war, about the cost of war and the futility of war. And we're going to be speaking with Nellie Hester-Bailey and Bill Gilson. Nellie Hester-Bailey she's on Monday evenings here in Inside Housing. She also does internet broadcasts with Glenn Ford on Black Agenda Radio. She is an activist, has been for a long time. We also have Bill Gilson, who is with Veterans for Peace, and wanted to bring on somebody who had been in the military, because this is upcoming Memorial Day, and we want to reflect not just on what is, on the glory of war, so to speak. First of all, we're going to bring in Bill Gilson. And Bill, we want to thank you for coming in. It's okay if I call you Bill?
Sure, fine.
Okay. All right. We want to thank you for coming in. I did a little research on Veterans for Peace. And it seems that Veterans for Peace is a national organization founded in 1985, by military veterans opposed to Reagan administration's war against the people of Central America. It includes men and women and veterans of all eras and duty stations spanning the Spanish Civil War, World War II, Korea, Vietnam, Panama, Persian Gulf, Bosnia, Afghanistan, Iraq, and other conflicts and periods in between. So we're happy to have you, Bill. And I want to start off about your background a little bit. How much time did you spend in the military? What was your rank, etc.? What did you do?
First, I'd like to say thank you for having me here. I was in the United States Navy from 1954 to 58, mostly serving in the Mediterranean as an aviation electrician. I had the good fortune, through no help on my part, to have just avoided Korea. So I got in after Korea had ended. I'd be considered post-Korea.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And what brought you to Veterans for Peace? And when did you come to Veterans for Peace, and what brought you?
I've been basically, I'd say in the last 8 to 9 years, deeply involved with Veterans for Peace. And how I made this journey has basically taken up most of my life, I would say, probably from the time that I left the Navy in 58, and I started questioning why we had left 54,000 Americans, in Korea. And from then on, it became a learning experience of finding out why we wage war on the rest of the world. Mm-hmm. And that really is where we are at this point in time. We are a warmongering nation. We are not a nation of peace. Okay, we have to move along. But as of about 2 p.m. This afternoon, the cost of war was $1,335,752,561,000 and some change, a couple of $100, and counting. So, Nellie, I want you to kind of talk about what you feel about the futility of war, the state that countries have been left in, like the state that Iraq is left in, the state Afghanistan is in, and also the short war, Libya, the state that Libya has been left in. And then I want to talk you to remark on that, and we'll get back to Bill.
Just first let me say that the estimated cost of war is really more than $1.3 trillion. It is estimated at $3.7 to $4.4 million trillion dollars, trillions, and so that's over $4 trillion, and that includes the U.S. budget appropriation, the veteran and medical benefits, Homeland Security, and all of the other infrastructure, financial infrastructure that it takes to put on this war. In addition, because the U.S. borrows the money for these wars, it is estimated that there is $1 trillion in interest that is not included in the top end of $4.4 trillion, and that's $1 trillion in interest, and this is supposedly up into 2020. And secondly, just let me say, just in terms of the status of things and how things are going, you mentioned Lieutenant Colonel Daniel Davis, who's a whistleblower, and he had 4 tours in Afghanistan.
Yeah, 2 in Iraq and 2 in Afghanistan.
And so he went to Afghanistan to do an on the ground report about what was going on, an assessment, and he published that assessment. There was a classified version and an unclassified version, and the gist of his report is that the on the ground reality is quite different from this
picture that they paint.
Yeah, not only the picture, but the word that I'm thinking about, that this rosy picture that is painted by the U.S. military, and in fact they're losing the war, and we're just coming up now into the Taliban has announced its spring offensive, which is, we've seen that extended also in Iraq, and so we've seen these spats of bombing and just chaos. And what Bill said is that these wars, it's not even, it is a war of chaos. It is a war of total and complete disregard for Mother Earth, disregard for life, and just in terms of the losses, when we think about 500,000 people lost in mostly women and children who died in Iraq. Bill and I were just talking earlier about Madeleine Albright, who worked for the State Department, and when she was asked, in lieu of those figures, nearly 500,000, mostly women and children, having died, and she was asked if it was worth it, and she looked everyone straight in the face and she said, absolutely, it was worth it.
Who said this?
This is Madeleine Albright. And so we see it's not only the cost and the senselessness of the killing, the over 6,000 American soldiers who have died, thousands of more who are wounded, but it is just the incredible immorality of what they are doing without any regards. And to hear these people talk about these wars being conducted in the name of democracy, in the name of peace, in the name of justice is just so abhorrent. But it is the state of affairs with the U.S. government as it seeks to prop up its dying empire with these resource wars.
Okay. Now, some cynics feel that the end game is ultimately to control the resources and the region, and that the United States needs the war to fuel the economy. Bill?
Well, I think there's a whole lot of truth to that. That's exactly why we're there. We're not there to spread freedom and democracy. We never have been. That is the one thing that I think I have learned along my road of enlightenment, that we basically do things for our end. We are not out there to help people. We are not the benevolent nation that we have been that we basically grow up believing we are. We are not.
Just wanted to quote from Lieutenant Colonel Daniel Davis. He said, "It is difficult for me to understand how, in light of so many reputable reports of how poor things are going in Afghanistan and the likelihood of civil war is very high, that our strategy is not working at all. Yet we have senior folks in our government saying everything is on track, everything is working out, no one ever challenges that. And this is what Davis told Politico. Men's lives are going to be lost as a product of this, in my view. Comments from either one of you.
Well, I mean, I couldn't agree with you more. Again, the end game is American empire. And the sun never sets without the American ruling elite believing that. Mm-hmm. And that is the case we're at right now.
As you are speaking, and as I go over the remarks of Lieutenant Colonel Davis, and I go back at Richard Smedley Butler earlier, and we both probably
sure.
And then he said war is Iraq, right? And he was at that time one of the most direct decorated military.
Two-time Medal of Congressional Medal of Honor.
Exactly. Now, Dwight Eisenhower, former president and general, also told us to beware of the military industrial complex. But I wanted to get to a piece. Iraq had it was saying, according to this report, Iraq had a modern infrastructure, okay, with clean water, sanitation, and stuff. And now, through shock and awe, they're left without any of that.
I had the pleasure of being in Iraq before it was bombed into the Stone Ages as the U.S. pledged that it would be. It was by far one of the, and this isn't to compare it to its leadership, but in terms of modernity, it was a modern nation. It's an old civilization. They did not have Sharia law. It was where most of the middle class and upper middle class sent their young people, their sons and daughters to college. In Iraq, it was a very modern city, and all of its infrastructure was intact, sewage, water, electricity. And all of that was destroyed by the U.S. deliberately, and they did as they promised, that they bombed the country back into the Stone Ages out of modernity. Mm-hmm. And that is what they wanted to do. That is what they did. Not to mention, and we have to remember that Saddam Hussein was, in fact, their ally for many, many, many years. And it was the U.S. that overthrew whatever modicum of democracy was in the country, as it was in the case of Muammar Gaddafi in Libya, who was also an ally of the U.S. government. But so they went into all of these countries, and what do they have to show for it? The countries, both Libya and Iraq are splintered into tribal warfare with various groups controlling the certain parts of the country. The green zone in Afghanistan is in fact the only safe zone for U.S. military personnel, and they, along with President Karzai, do not venture outside of the green zone because there is no stability.
So the question then is to either of you, where is the victory? I mean, according to this report, between March 2003 and October 2004, 100,000 civilians, many of them women and children, were killed. That's just between 2003 and 2004, not counting up to this point. Where is the victory?
Well, women and children are always the first victims of war. And then we also have to mention, in terms of women, rape as a weapon of war. which is what we saw in rape and looting and the pillaging, and also the racism that was manifested in the ethnic cleansing of black Libyans with the so-called freedom fighters supported by the U.S. government and by NATO forces. And then, of course, we know that NATO itself is a partner in the U.S. Crime of imperialism, of imperialist domination. Conditions
in Libya at this point. We want to talk about the conditions because we want people to think about this stuff this coming Memorial Day. We want, to connect the dots. We're pretty much okay here, but other places have been left in total chaos, in shambles. People will suffer for the next decades.
Well, I'll just say pretty quickly, there have been reports that in some neighborhoods there are signs, things were better under Gaddafi. Obviously the country is in a state of chaos, and that the infrastructure has been largely destroyed. Hospitals.
Just before, I address Libya, I would like to get back on that one about what is victory. If you consider, which I do, war is the ultimate crime against humanity, I don't see how you can go there and talk about victory or losses. We're talking about human lives. And I think that is the new dialogue that has to be at some point addressed. There is no such thing as victory in war.
I'd just like to add to what Bill said. This is the same kind of shallow victory that exists now in all of these theaters of war in these countries. And these countries, as shallow as it was for President Barack Obama to receive the Nobel Peace Prize. I mean, it's the obscenity of the shallowness is just so inescapable.
I was telling Bill earlier that I went over the speech that Dr. King gave. I think it was in 67.
67, April 4th, Riverside Church, New York City,
where he talked about what was happening in Vietnam, and I said that it is timely. I would urge people to this weekend, if you have a computer, Google that speech, and then reflect on where things are now. One of the things that Dr. King said at the time, he said that a nation that continues year after year to spend more money on military defense than on programs of social uplift is approaching spiritual, it says here, doom, but he said death.
.75% of white students graduate in New York City.
Only 52.1% of African American students graduate in New York City.
Only 49.4% of Hispanic students graduate in New York City.
Only 12% of students receiving special education services graduate in New York City.
At least 40% of all students leave school without a high school diploma in New York City.
You have the right to stay in school until the age 21.
If you would like more information about your right to stay in school or return to school, please contact Advocates for Children's Helpline at 1-866-427-6033.
Well, I'd just like to say pretty quickly that the text that you referred to, the speech that Dr. Martin Luther King gave in terms of peace and war and a respect for humanity where it exists throughout the world is worth noting well beyond Memorial Day, but throughout the year, and in particular this election year. I mean, what do we stand for? What are we voting for? How do we begin to hold the elected officials, including the president, accountable? He is to be held accountable as much as the Looney Tunes of Mitt Romney, and that is our responsibility. And I think King's words: "You judge a person by the not by the color of their skin," and that's but the content of their character. But that's the great irony when we look at the presidency and the theaters of war with the current president, and we need to do that. Particularly African Americans, with the great tradition of supporting peace and justice, as was embodied by Dr. King, and having the most, according to the census data, the group. The largest group in the U.S., not the largest group, but a group that is frequently against the war, proportionately speaking, larger than that of any other ethnic group. It is African Americans who have had that distinctive honor, and somehow or another we seem to have lost some of that by this blind and support for President Obama, absent any criticism, absent any sense of accountability for his administration. Now, we know, on the other hand, that this is U.S. imperialism, and regardless of who is in the office, who holds the office of the presidency, that the agenda is the same, and that is these wars for resources.
Bill, any last? How can one get in contact with Veterans for Peace? And Nellie, you give us any information you want to give us out there.
It's national website is veteransforpeace.org. We're home based out of St. Louis, Missouri, and we'd love to hear from you. Come join us. Let's help make a better world together.
Okay, sounds good. Nellie?
Yes, please visit the website of Black Agenda Report. That's blackagendareport.org. Also, tune in if you want to have a political spin on gentrification to Inside Housing that airs here on WHCR every Monday from 6 p.m. until 7 p.m. And we'd love to have you tune in to listen to us.
Okay, I want to go away with this if I have just a minute. It says, and this is from the Herald from Zimbabwe, a new international movement against war and militarism must be based on the understanding that the fundamental cause of imperialist conflict is not the subjective characteristics of political leaders or mistaken policies behind the criminality and recklessness of the leaders in the U.S., Europe, and elsewhere, are the fundamental contradictions of capitalism between world economy and the outmoded nation-state system, and between socialized production and the private ownership of the means of production. And they're talking about the corporatocracy, and that's what they're talking about in Zimbabwe, in Africa. So,
well, they're talking about it all over the world, when in fact we see the collapse of the economy in Europe. There is no rebound in there. We see austerity measures that are taking the assets of these countries. When we look at production increasingly being sent overseas and in the U.S., and we are relying on a financial sector that engages in casino betting as its financial model. And so the system is going down. I don't see that there's any reprieve. It will continue to sink into the mire.
Okay, will we wake up? And then we got to go. Will we wake up before it's too late?
Let's hope
Bill?
so.
Well,
okay,
I'll echo Bill. Let's hope so.
Okay, can we
Revolutionaries are great optimists, so I echo with Bill.
Okay.
Amen to that.
All right. I want to thank you both for being here. Bill Gilsons from Veterans for Peace, Nellie Hestevelli, our own Nellie Hestevelli from Inside Housing and the Black Agenda Report. We want to thank Keziah for being so kind to let us have a little bit of time. Thank you, Keziah, so much. Thank you, Patrick, for your filming. And thank you for listening. And as I said, I urge you this Memorial Day, please take some time to Google that speech by Dr. Martin Luther King, Beyond Vietnam, April 4th, 1967 at the Riverside Church. And let's organize, y'all. Take care. God bless.
Just because of my background
doesn't mean you could stereotype me
for what I look like.
My parents came here.
My parents came here
so that I could have a better life.
Not all of us are the same.
Not all of us are the same. Yo soy Latino.
Ako ay Filipino.
我係中國人.
Please don't judge us.
Please don't judge us.
Please don't judge us.
Please don't judge us.
The show that I have is The Jose Show, where I produce it and I'm the host of it. The show is about youth nonprofit organizations that benefit young people, where I feature youth organizations that are working with the young people, that's doing tremendous work with these young people to get where they want to be in their careers. And the importance of this show is to make sure that young people get a chance to show off their talent and perform and bring out different discussions that they want to talk about.
If I had the chance to have a show on Youth Channel, it would be a comedy show about the workplace and the challenges that people have there. And it would entail examples such as if someone has a mean boss or they can't figure out their actual job and title. The message that will go out to the audience is that people can overcome challenges no matter what it is at work, that they should know how to deal with it and be strong during the process.